Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Ignorant Intellectual on Media. Today, I thought we'd do what would we call this? A thrift store haul. It's mostly thrift store. There is a couple of movies that I got, so it should be a mixed haul. But I do so many mixed hauls. Let's make this one a thrift store haul, since about 90% of this stuff is from thrift stores. All right, so let's see how quickly we can get through it, because most of the stuff that I got is books, but after the books will be a bunch of movies, so we'll do the movies last, do the books first. All right, so first up is the Tibetan Book of the Dead. I actually found two books about the dead, the Egyptian one and the Tibetan one. This is basically, do you have a fear of dying? So many people, I think it's a natural instinct to have a fear of dying, but most people, just live their lives, and maybe every once in a while they get touched by death. I was touched by death a couple of times. It's pretty scary. But once you are touched by death and you get around that, if you can, some people suffer like from PTSD or whatever, even maybe a car accident, or trapped in the car for a long period of time thinking they're going to bleed out and die or whatever, and then they get rescued or things like that. Me, one of them was, I was climbing up the side of a cliff, I guess you could call it. It's not a mountain, a cliff, because it's at the edge of the ocean. It was on the Atlantic Ocean in Nova Scotia. I was climbing up the rocky part, which was pretty easy, but then above the rocky part, there was like a 45-degree angle that went up to the edge of the grass where the picnic area is. So you would drive in, and then the picnic area is here, and then you go around. There's a path down to the ocean, and then you turn around and look back, and all you see is like big cliffs, right? So I decided as a child I was going to take a shortcut. Instead of walking all the way around, I was going to walk up the cliffs, right? So I walked up the cliffs, which was pretty easy. But then I got to the edge of the incline or whatever, and it's smooth, and it's all made of sand, right? And I didn't realize what I was doing. I was too dumb to realize what I was doing, and then I'm walking halfway up this enclave, and I have no way of grabbing anything, and if I slipped, I'd just slide and go off the side of the cliff, and I'd be dead. I'd be hitting the rocks down below, right? And it came to me when I was halfway up this incline going, well, if I slip, I'm dead, right? So then it was like, you have this touch of death where you see death is there, right? And you're going, wow, it's like, and then you just start sweating. So I had to stand there and not move for like, I don't know how long, it seemed like forever, but maybe 30 seconds. And then I just slowly walked up, trying to be sure of my footing before I take the next step. And then when I got to the edge of the grass and laid down on the grass, I just was really relieved. And I said, well, it was the second time that involved more of me ended up being on the street, basically. And so maybe, you don't know how you're going to survive in the street, especially in the winter, living in Canada. So it's almost like a death sentence if you don't know where the resources are, right? So there was a couple of times I was almost on the street because of lack of opportunity or trying to find a job and I can't find a job, that kind of thing, right? So, so you have a respect for death. So I'm not really afraid of death in so much, but why I'm telling you this is this Tibetan Book of the Dead, what it does is it prepares you for death, and the preparation of death to the Tibetans is as important as the preparation for your life. When you go through your life, there's a section of your life that you're going to be dealing with death, and they bring you through the ritual and everything of this, and it makes death less scary and more, I wouldn't say inviting, but less traumatic, let's put it that way. And extremely good book if you haven't read it. All right. The other one is the Egyptian one, but I'll get to it. They're under the stack. Next up is Hunter S. Thompson's most famous book, Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. It's made into a film starring Johnny Depp. It's basically, they drive to Las Vegas with like a whole bunch of different drugs and alcohol in the thing, and then they go on this binge, and he kind of writes through it, so you get like a drug-induced novel basically of his thoughts. It's funny how they did the description on the back of it. It's like they quote from the book, and the quote is, "We had 2 bags of grass, 75 pellets of mescaline, 5 sheets of high-powered blotter acid, a salt shaker, half full of cocaine, and a whole galaxy of multicolored uppers, downers, screamers, laughers. Also a quart of tequila, a quart of rum, a case of Budweiser, a pint of raw ether, and 24 amyls. But the only thing that really worried me was the ether. There was nothing in the world more helpless and irresponsible than a man in the depths of an ether binge, right? So this is what you get. It's basically a drug-induced memoir kind of thing. Quite popular, and the movie I didn't find very good. So the book is quite a lot better than the movie. Next up is a hardcover of The Trial. This is Franz Kafka's one of his greatest novels, and it's basically his criticism of communism, I guess, or like because communism there's such a large bureaucracy in communism, right? So basically, it's about a bank clerk, a guy who works in a bank, and he gets arrested and charged, but they don't tell him what he's charged with or what he's arrested for, so he doesn't know, and then he tries to find out. And he can't find out because there's this huge shadowy bureaucracy that isn't telling him anything, yet he's, the stress must be crazy. But anyways, it's kind of humorous in a way as well, because it's like, wow, it's just like, going towards the absurd. But it's such a good book. If you haven't read it, it's extremely, the funny thing about this though is, my brother, who's an avid reader, but he's the books that he likes read, it's like Stephen King or Dinar Kuntz, those type of books. And so I said, I've read a lot as well. And he goes, well, can you recommend me a book? And I recommended him this one. He read. He said, this fucking shitty book. What a stupid fucking book, right? And so I guess he didn't get the book. So, but it's a really good book. It's like, anyways, read it and then you'll understand, or maybe you won't. All right, so that's The Trial. Then I found this nice edition of Alice's Adventures in Wonderland. It doesn't have Through the Looking Glass with it, because a lot of books will put both of those books together. This is just the one, right? And this is put out by Collins Design. Collins. So it's a really beautiful. There's a bunch of these going around. I found another one. Can't remember the name of it because I sold it so quickly. But what the hell was that book that I can't remember. It was Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde was the book. So it's like the art in this is almost as good as the actual book itself, right? It's extremely good art. So if you come across these books by Collins Design, yeah, they're really nice. Nice hardcovers. Up next is Henry of Huntington's The History of the English People, 1000 to 1154. Basically, this goes through the kingdoms of William II, Henry I, and Stephen. All right, and it's basically about the Norman invasion and how the Normans took over England, right? The Battle of Hastings and all that, right? So this goes through that period of English history. So if you're a history buff, this is very good, and this is part of the Oxford World's Classics, the newest version of them. I like these editions. They're really nice because they have this. It's nice artwork on the front, but when you put it on the shelf, they also have artwork on the top. And then when you go across, you see all these little images that are really nice, right? It's just really hard to keep them clean because they're white, right? So, all right. So that's History of the English People. Charlotte's Web. I spoke about this novel numerous times. One of the greatest children's novel, if not the greatest children. E.B. White and Roald Dahl are like great writers of young people fiction, and all their novels are worth reading. And Leo Tolstoy's War and Peace. I've also spoke about this, how I tried to read this and I put it down. It's half novel, half philosophical, half history, half a bunch of things in it. Look how thick this sucker is, right? So this is the newest style of the Oxford World's Classic, and this is the one that was just before it, right? So it looks like this. Notice how this one is so much nicer than this one. I mean, just visually, right? But War and Peace is really easy to sell even in older editions, so I picked this up. So the older versions of it, of the Oxford World Classics, hesitant to pick up to resell because some of them don't resell very well. but the really popular titles like Tolstoy or Dostoevsky, or like Kafka or Camus, there's a group of elite writers that everybody picks up and reads, right? So, and some of them are really easy to sell, but others, like, for example, here's one. This is a popular novel, but it doesn't sell as well. All right, so this will stay on my shelf for a while, but it's again part of that Oxford World Classics. So this is a Madame Bovary, Flaubert's greatest novel. I spoke about this before, so I'm not going to do it again. D.H. Lawrence's Women in Love. I haven't read this, so I'm not going to review it. This one, I read this one, but it was such a long time ago. What is this one about? Clearest and strongest philosophical statements written about our time, and ranks with its authors. Why man, sensing the absurdity of his existence and unable to come to terms with the universe, why does he not commit suicide? Basically, it's a nihilistic type of, like, how do you, the world is nihilistic, right? If you really think about it, what's the point of your life, right? You are born, you live, and you die, and all the time between the two, unless maybe you're William Shakespeare or some famous guy, but eventually everybody is forgotten, and you're just like dust in the ground or whatever. So what's the point of life, right? This book is about that, right? So Margaret Atwood's Handmaid's Tale, which I've spoken about. This would be my choice for the greatest Canadian novel of all time. About a future world where women have lost the ability to give birth, and only a very small percentage of them can. So they end up becoming maid servants, slaves to rich men who want to have children. All right. Then we got The Fountainhead. This one and Ayn Rand's Atlas Shrugged are two extremely good novels to read. It puts forth her philosophy, which isn't, I don't know. The best way I describe her philosophy is, if we take, let's say, we take an organization, let's say the NBA, and you have a Michael Jordan. Well, the reason why the NBA exists is so that there's a competition that would bring Michael Jordan to the height of his ability, right? So basically, society is built for specific men, great men who use society to become great, and everybody else's job is to push them to be great, right? That's the whole point of society. So it's like the NBA doesn't exist for the fans or for the other players that are playing. It's for Michael Jordan or whoever, so that they can display their skills and get to be the best as they can, right? So, anyways, it's an interesting philosophy. It's called objectivism. It's called, but most serious philosophers kind of discard objectionism because it's not really a philosophy, they say. But anyways, it's interesting to read about it. Basically, she talks about these strong men, and in this one, it's an architect. I don't know his name though. What is his name? Do they say on the back of it? Anyways, it's about an architect and his life and how he's like fighting against a system that is set up not for his benefit, and how he should become great, and if he doesn't become great, society has failed, right? Is her argument. Anyways, read it and then you'll understand. This is one of the greatest strategy books of all time. This is The Art of War by Sun Tzu. All right, basically people are still reading this like 4,000 years later, right? I think it was 2000 BC this was written. Basically, it's about how to fight your enemies in all different situations, whether you're the large army against a smaller army, whether you're an individual or maybe you're in a social group or whatever, or mostly on the battlefield. It talks about guerrilla warfare, how to fight in guerrilla warfare, and all that. It's extremely good, and actually people read it nowadays more for its application towards business, how you be cutthroat in business to become successful, right? So that's The Art of War. A Portrait of an Artist as a Young Man. This is kind of like an autobiography or a self-portrait wrapped up in a novel, basically, and it's one of Joyce's best books. Leaves of Grass by Walt Whitman. All right. Whitman, one of the great poets, writers, back in the 19th century, if I remember correctly. I don't know a lot about Walt Whitman because I've never been a big fan of reading poetry. So, but this is part of the original Modern Library, which was in competition with the. I've mentioned it. I've talked about it lots of times in my previous videos of the Everyman Library, which were books that came out at the turn of the last century, early 1900s. Cheap, hardcover, paperback-sized books to sell to the general public, so the general public can also read great books. You don't have to be like a rich person to have access to knowledge or whatever, right? So there's over 800 volumes in this collection. With the Everyman Library, there was 1,000 volumes. So, but they were in direct competition. The Everyman Library was the British version of it, but the Americans, they would import these books from America, from England or whatever, and sell them on the American market. But I can't remember. Is it Dent? Can't remember who is the publisher of the Modern Library. Random House, yeah, sorry. Dent was the Everyman Library. So Random House, well, the guys that started Random House, anyways, thought that the Everyman Library was too British-centric, and so they started their own library, and it had more American titles in it. It was more American-centric, right? So that's the reason why they did it. Basically, Random House at the time was like the small side project, and the Modern Library was the main. But Random House, they had put out, just publishing like a publisher does, different books or whatever, right? So and it became more popular than the Modern Library. So Random House kind of took over the lead, and the Modern Library kind of moved to the side. And then in the future, Random House ended up even buying the Everyman Library and restarted the Everyman Library in a new series of books. I actually have one here. I'll show you. And then they put out it's funny because they own both names. They own the Everyman Library and they owned at the time, and they owned Random House owned the Modern Library. So they put out Modern Library and Everyman Library, which used to be in competition, but now they own both. Here's an example of the modern version of the Everyman Library. It's no longer numbered on the spine. Oh, this Leaves of Grass is numbered 97 in the collection of the Modern Library. All right, this one is numbered. Instead of putting it on the spine, they put it on the inside cover page. This is number 302 in the collection. There's about 450 of these presently. This one is Alice Munro, the Canadian, carried away a personal selection of her stories over her career. She put them together and they put out a book of all of her short stories. Well, not all of them, the ones that she chose. All right, so here's another example of it. This is Little Dorrit by Charles Dickens. All right, and this one is numbered 111 in the collection. So I picked up those three from a book dealer. All right, so I did all those. Then I found this, the Bantam Classics. They have a 2-volume set of all of Sherlock Holmes stories and novels, all in two paperbacks. So I found that. That'll sell pretty easily. Did that. All right, here's the Egyptian Book of the Dead. All right, just called the Book of the Dead. Now this one, whereas in the Tibetan Book of the Dead is to prepare you for your death and make you okay with it, kind of thing. This one is more about sending you off, and after you die, you have manuscripts and magical spells and incantations that you can do to fight for your life after your death to get where you want to go, because there's all these spirits and everything else that may be not your friends, let's put it that way. So this is all about the rituals after you die, and when you wake in the afterlife, they have all these things for you to take with you to to fight for your survival kind of idea. So it's pretty interesting as well. Has hieroglyphics and everything, and it explains the hieroglyphics. So that's pretty cool. So I thought I'd be able to resell that, so I picked it up. All right. Then I found this. Now there's six things I collect in books. I showed you two of them. So I collect the modern version of the Everyman Library. And I collect the original version of the Everyman Library. And I collect the original version of the Modern Library. Then I collect leather-bound editions of books that I've read that I want to have a copy of at hand, like as a memento. And those are from either the Easton Press or the Franklin Library, if I can find a volume anyways. And the third one that I do that as well, because there's just too many of them to actually have if you were to collect the Franklin Library, I don't know how many volumes you would end up having, but you have to cover your whole house with them. Same with the Easton Press, and same with the Folio Society. So the Folio Society aren't leather-bound editions. They're hardcover editions, really beautiful hardcovers. All right, beautiful editions. And what they're most famous for is they have really nice editions, and then they have this thing, which is basically a hard cardboard case that you protect the book inside of it. Most people like to have this cover to be in nice condition as the book is, but its main point is to protect the book, right? So this one is kind of old and it's kind of falling apart, right? But it's doing its job because the book is really nice. Anyways, this is Dumas on food. So Alexander Dumas Sr. was a big foodie, and he ended up writing a really huge tome of, can't remember the name of it, but it's like a book on food, like almost like an encyclopedia size book on food. And what the Folio Society did was take a bunch of, pull out the best of it and put it into a smaller volume, and then you can read the smaller volume. So supposedly what people really like about it more than the recipes that are inside is the actual stories behind the recipes, because Dumas is such a great writer. So that I thought I could resell this because I haven't read this book, so I wouldn't keep it in my collection. What else do we have? Okay, all right. And then I went to a thrift store and I found 3 volumes of these. Now, let me see who the publisher is so I can give them a shout out or whatever. All right, Race Point Publishing. It's called Race Point Publishing. All right, so Race Point is kind of like the Folio Society, but I don't think, see that? It's a really nice edition, and you pull this out, it kind of shimmers. I don't know if you can notice the shimmer. Can you notice the shimmer on it? And this is the complete fiction of H.P. Lovecraft, right? The horror writer, right? A lot of his stories have ended up on the screen in film, all right? So it's basically his full collection in a really nice volume set. Now the jacket, where these guys, they don't print anything on the slipcase. They leave the slipcase blank, and you want to know what the book is, then you look on the spine, all right? With these ones, they give you a nice design, and then they put the title of the book on it as well. And then they give you what would be on the dust jacket on the back of it, right? So, but this will fall off eventually if you don't protect it, right? See, it's ripping here, all right? So this is all the fiction of H.P. Lovecraft, the horror writer. And then I also found the complete tales and poems of Edgar Allan Poe, all right, in the same genre, the same book. See how it shimmers? Oh, shimmers, really nice volume. It has a ribbon on it as well. So I don't know if they're trying to compete with the Folio Society, but they seem to be more into complete works rather than individual volumes or whatever, right? And then the third one I found is the complete works of William Shakespeare. So it has all of his plays and all of his poetry. Again, in a really nice volume that shimmers. I don't know if you can see the shimmer. And yeah, so with the ribbon as well, all right, in a nice box. So basically, these are collectibles of complete works rather than individual ones like these ones usually are. Although Shakespeare, they have like a 9-volume set of Shakespeare in a box, but there's like 3 volumes in each box, and then there's three or 4 boxes. I have it. It's in my library over there. So I'm not going to keep these. I'm going to resell them. But they're reasonably priced new, because new they're like $40 Canadian. So that's not bad for that. You know what I mean? Like you can get into the hundreds of dollars with these ones, right? So anyway, so I got 3 of these volumes, and I should be able to sell them for maybe $25 each, maybe. And I found them in the thrift store. They were all $5 each. Probably sell them for 25, 20 maybe, 25. But you know, this one is probably will be the most popular out of them, because you don't really come across H.P. Lovecraft's works all that often, right? So, and then you get all of them in one volume. Yeah, that'll definitely be popular. All right, so I think that's all the books. Okay, so let's do the movies. I found this one. Now I have both. I have both of these. I have. So it's True Grit, the original I think it was 64. It came out. This weekend, 64 came out with John Wayne as Rooster Cockburn. Rooster. Anyways, and basically it's about this girl, this young teenage girl whose father is murdered, and then she goes, collects up money and hires Rooster Cockburn to go find her father's killer and kill him, right? So it's basically a revenge film. And he kind of partners up with a second guy, and then they go hunting for this guy, right? So, both movies are extremely good. The second movie, the more recent one, I think it was 2010, I think. Yeah, 2010. Was done by the Coen Brothers. So, you know, the Coen Brothers are great. So, you know, a lot of the times when they do remakes, most of the time they're forgettable. The remakes are forgettable. But if you get a good director and writer, sometimes you can make the remake, you know, just as good or better. Well, I don't know if it'll ever be better, but you know, a good remake of it, right? Like Total Recall, I really enjoyed that one with Colin, what's his name? The Irish guy, Colin. Anyways, I enjoyed, or was that RoboCop? No, it was Total Recall. And then the remake of RoboCop was okay, but this one is really good. In fact, I kind of like the remake more than the original. But I picked it up because I had both of these, but they were both on DVD. So, but now I got to decide where I'm going to put it. Am I going to put it in the general population of True Grit, or I'm probably going to go put it in the Coen section, the Coen Brothers section of my library, and then, you know, sell the DVD, right? So, still, and it's plastic, never been washed. So that's a True Grit. And then, if you've watched my channel, you'll know that my daughter and I are going through like Amazon has this company that makes these posters of, like, you know, the greatest films of all time, or you know, the 100 best date ideas. So maybe you can take your wife or girlfriend out and like do the dates that they put on it, and then what you do is, once you do it, you kind of scrape off. You know, they used to have these maps with all the countries of the world, and then you could scrape it off for each country that you went and visited, kind of thing. Well, they did it with the movies, top 100 movies, and one of the movies that's on it is the Indian film Three Idiots, which I've never heard of. All right, so I didn't have it in my collection. Of the 100, I think I have 95 or 96 of all those films in my collection already, but there's like 4 or 5 or 6 of them that I don't have, and this was one of them. So I ended up going on on eBay, and I found it. It's cost me about like $12 to get or something, right? So hopefully it's worth it, because I never heard of the film before, right? It's an Indian comedy. It's supposed to be really funny, so we'll see when I watch it, when we get to that selection in the top 100. All right, what's next? Next is Inside Llewyn Davis. This is basically this guy with a guitar who's a musician who was in a duo folk band, and they ended up splitting up because, well, his partner ended up dying, and basically he lives this miserable life, I think, in New York, and it's about his life, and it's a pretty depressing film, but you get songs in it that are really, really good, and the main actor in this film is a really good musician with folk music, right? So he just sits down and plays his guitar, right? So basically, it takes place in Greenwich Village in New York, right? So I don't think it's a Coen Brothers film again, but I don't think it's their best film. Their best films, the top tiered films that they have are, Fargo and The Big Lebowski, and what was that one? Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? That one was really good as well. So this one is kind of probably middle tier, right? So, but Criterion thought enough of it to put it in their collection, and it's number 794 in the collection. So I picked it up. After that is Yakuza Apocalypse. I don't know if you ever heard of Takashi Miike, but this man, he's one of my favorite Japanese directors of all time. I know you have Ozu and other older directors like Kurosawa and Ozu are mostly the ones that people point to when it comes to classic Japanese cinema. But for modern cinema, Takeshi Kitano, some of his films are really good, but he's kind of more known as an actor, but he does direct some of his own films and others. There's one, I can't remember what it's called. Well, he did a remake of The Blind Swordsman. What was his name? The Japanese Blind Swordsman. Anyways, that was pretty good. But there was another one that he made, which was basically, I'll put it here. That movie is one of the greatest cinematography films that I've ever seen in my life. The coloring and the movement and the mood and everything in that film is just, it blew me away when I watched it. So if you have a chance to pick up that Kitano film, pick it up. It's extremely good. Now, back to Takashi Miike. Miike, whereas Kitano's done, a few films, Miike is like a proliferant filmmaker. He'll make like 8, 9, 10 films in a year, sometimes 3, 4, like that. He's got, I don't know how many, he's got to have over 100 films under his belt. And this is one of them, and it's the one that you find most of all is Ichi the Killer. I don't know if you've ever seen that film. It's pretty brutal. There's one of the main characters in it is basically what he did was he took a razor blade and he sliced his face here and he sliced his face here because he's a fan of dragons. And then he'd take a safety pin and put it here, and a safety pin and put it here. When he'd take a drag of his cigarette, and he would close his mouth and he would blow, and because he cut his face up towards here, what happens is this part of his face opens up and smoke comes out and makes it look like he's breathing fire, like a dragon or whatever. So this is in the mind of Takashi Miike, right? And he's made some really, really good films and really, really bad films, right? But they're all fucked up in the head, basically, so many of them. There's another one, The Happiness of the Kurakuchis. I can't remember the name of the name, but that one is like a cursed hotel, right? It's like a cursed hotel. Anyways, that one was really funny. But, a lot of his films are brutal and gross, and, if they were American films, some of them would have to be X-rated kind of thing. Not X-rated because of porn or something, but X-rated because of sex and violence in them kind of idea. Anyways, this one is Yakuza Apocalypse, and I haven't seen it yet. Basically, it's basically a Yakuza crime film, right? So I'm going to really enjoy watching it because I haven't really watched any bad Miike films yet. So then next up is The Tragically Hip, That Night in Toronto. All right, so The Tragically Hip, if you're American, you may have heard of The Tragically Hip, you may have not, but if you're Canadian, you've heard of The Tragically Hip. You know, there's like Rush, there's like The Guess Who, maybe BTO, and The Tragically Hip when you're talking about the greatest Canadian bands of all time, right? And this band is like, they never really made it big anywhere else except in Canada, so we kind of own them, right? And you know, they have done forays in the United States. They played on Saturday Night Live and other places, but they never really, nobody really got them outside of Canada. But in Canada, everybody got them. Their songs are like staples, theme songs for Canadians, because you know, the songs are Canadian oriented, so it's, you know, it's not too often that you hear a lot about, you know, Canadian folklore or stories about Canada rather than from elsewhere in the world, right? And this was basically their concert in Toronto, so I thought I'd pick it up and watch it. All right, so that's that one. Then we got D.W. Griffith's controversial film Birth of a Nation, which is basically, it shows African Americans in a really bad light. But you know, this film was made back in the, you know, the early 1900s, right? So so it's, you know, historically important, even though, you know, so many you know, pressure groups or whatever like are trying to get rid of this film, right? So I have it on DVD, but I didn't have it on Blu-ray. And Kino put out a Kino Classics version of it, so I said I thought I'd pick it up and watch it. But yeah, the you know, the stereotypical, you know, those old stereotypes that black people were thought to be like is in full force in this film. So all right, then I picked up The Town, the Ben Affleck film. This is where you have a bank robber who ends up falling for, I think, wasn't she like a worker inside the bank or something? Anyways, and you know, his bank robbing mates don't know about it, but when they find out about it, they're going, "What are you, nuts?" You know, we can get connected because of that, right? So, anyways, it's a pretty powerful film. I liked it, although I'm not a big fan of Ben Affleck. But I have this on DVD, but I didn't have it on Blu-ray, so I found it on Blu-ray. All right, and then I found this. All right, and this is the Bounty Hunter Trilogy. All right, and this was put out by Radiance. All right, and all the Radiance things have these kind of wraparound paper, right? Right. So in a hardcover, so these are a lot like the Arrow box sets, right? So basically has the 3 films on in 2 Blu-ray cases, right? And it's you know, one of the more famous samurai films, yakuza samurai films, if I remember correctly. Before he made his name in Lone Wolf and Cub, which I also have, Tomasaburo Wakayama starred in this triptych of violent samurai spectacles inspired by James Bond and the spaghetti westerns. All right, so 3 of them. Basically, it's Killer's Mission, The Fort of Death, and 8 Men to Kill. All right, so this guy had it on Facebook Marketplace for a reasonably cheap price, actually. And I don't collect these. I never really heard of Radiance much, but watching videos, Radiance has come into the watching videos on movie collecting. They've come to prominence. All right, and this is number 46 and 47 in their collection, but I don't really collect Radiance films. People want too much for them. All the ones that I've seen, like the Radiance films I've seen in the secondary market, people are like charging almost the same, or sometimes more if it's out of print than the original price of the thing was, right? And anybody who knows anything or has any brains knows movies are just different than other collectibles in that the older they are, the worse they're worth, right? A DVD or a VHS is older than a Blu-ray, but everybody, if you chose between a DVD and a Blu-ray, would pick the Blu-ray, right? So anybody who thinks that they have some sort of piece of gold because they have an older movie or something is just, or the movie is like, hard to find or rare, and think that they can. Well, I guess they can because people buy them, right? But I would never buy them because I know eventually it's going to come out. If it's a DVD and somebody's charging $70 for it because it never came out on Blu-ray, eventually it'll come out on Blu-ray, or if it's on Blu-ray, eventually it'll come out on 4K. That kind of thing. There's always whatever reason that makes it rare. It'll end up becoming replaced at some point. I don't know if it'll do it every time, but most times it will. It'll be replaced, like Dogma. That Blu-ray was worth a lot of money, but now Kevin Smith got the rights back from Weinstein for that film, and he's probably going to come out with a 4K of that, and then that $70 or $100 Blu-ray is going to be worth like $5, right? And so if you spent like $70 or $100 on it to put it in your collection, and now you're just going to replace it with a 4K, and you're going, fuck, why did I spend so much money on that? Another one is what was it called? 28 Days Later. Remember 28 Days Later and 28 Weeks Later? Well, the 28 Days Later, the Blu-ray is it's worth some money, right? But they're coming out with a 28 Years Later soon, and so they're going to re-release those other two films during the same time, and then re-release 28 Years Later. And they're probably all going to be coming out on 4K or whatever eventually. The Blu-rays are going to be, oh well. So it was rare, hard to find before. It ain't going to be in the near future, right? So it's like it's pointless to spend that ton of money on it unless it's a really obscure film, and it's really unlikely that it's going to come out in a better version, right? And then maybe you can spend a little bit extra money, but no, usually not. All right, so that's everything. All right, so you have a great night or day, depending on when you're watching this. And think about subscribing and give me a thumbs up if you like the video. And I'll talk to you in my next video. And you have a great day, as I said. And bye for now.